My hands trembled as I stood in my living room, staring at Robert and Kimberly. The scene before me a punch to the gut. Robert, my husband of 7 years, sat on our cream-colored sofa with a glass of red wine in his hand, his tie loosened like he'd just come home from a long day. Kimberly, our flirty neighbor with her perfect blonde curls and too tight dresses, perched beside him, laughing at something he'd said, her hand brushing his arm. The air felt thick, suffocating, and my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I'd just walked in, expecting an empty house after Robert insisted I take our daughter April to Florida, and here they were, caught. My phone, still warm from my pocket, was in my hand, and without even thinking, I'd hit record. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was betrayal, raw and ugly, staring me in the face. I'm Lisa, 32 years old, a mom and an Instagram influencer with over 50,000 followers who think I've got it all together. My feed is full of curated shots, me in flowy dresses with April on my hip, Robert grilling in the backyard, our perfect little family in our perfect little house in suburban California. I built that image from scratch, pouring my heart into it while Robert built his startup with my savings. 7 years ago, I was just a graphic designer with big dreams, and Robert was the charming guy who promised me the world. Now I'm the one holding our family together, or at least I thought I was. April, our 4-year-old with her messy brown curls and gap-toothed smile, is my everything. Robert used to be too, but as I stood there watching Kimberly giggle like she belonged in my home, that illusion shattered. "What the hell is this?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, cutting through their cozy little moment like a knife. Robert's head snapped up, his dark eyes widening in shock, the wine sloshing in his glass. Kimberly froze, her smile faltering, and for a split second, I saw panic flash across her face. "Lisa, honey, what are you doing here?" Robert stammered, setting the glass down on the coffee table with a clink. He stood up, smoothing his shirt like that could smooth over what I'd just walked into. "I thought you were on your way to the airport." "I forgot April's passport," I said, my throat tight, my words clipped. But clearly I interrupted something. "Kimberly, why are you in my house?" My eyes locked on her, and I could feel the heat rising in my chest, a mix of rage and humiliation. "Oh, Lisa, it's nothing," Kimberly said, her voice sugary sweet as she stood, brushing invisible lint off her dress. "I just stopped by to drop off some files for Robert. I didn't know you'd be here." "Files?" I spat, stepping closer, my sneakers squeaking on the hardwood floor. "You're sitting here drinking wine with my husband, and you expect me to believe it's about files?" My voice rose, shaky but fierce, and I could feel tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I wouldn't cry, not yet. "Lisa, calm down," Robert said, his tone annoyingly soothing, like he was talking to a child. "She just got here. I told her you'd already left, and we were just having a drink. It's innocent, I swear." "Innocent?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed in the room. "You think I'm stupid, Robert? I come home to find her here, cozying up to you, and you want me to believe it's innocent?" My hand tightened around my phone, the video still rolling, capturing every word. The screen felt hot against my palm, like it was burning with the truth I'd stumbled into. Robert's face twisted, caught between guilt and that infuriating calm he always tried to project, while Kimberly shifted awkwardly, her heels tapping nervously against the floor. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears, a drumbeat of rage and disbelief. "Lisa, please," Robert said, his voice low, almost pleading now as he took a step toward me. "You're overreacting. She just got here, literally minutes ago. I didn't even know she was coming." "Didn't know?" I snapped, my eyes narrowing as I held my ground. "She's sitting on my couch, Robert, drinking my wine, laughing with you like she owns the place. And you expect me to buy that she just showed up?" My free hand balled into a fist, nails digging into my palm, the sting grounding me as my emotions spiraled. Kimberly piped up, her voice too high, too forced. "Lisa, I swear, I only came to drop off some papers for his meeting next week. I didn't mean to—" "Save it," I cut her off, my glare slicing through her flimsy excuse. "You've got that little smirk on your face like you've won something. You think I haven't noticed how you've been hovering around him for months? The 'Oh, Robert, let me help with your garden,' or 'Robert, I baked extra cookies, want some?'" I mimicked her syrupy tone, my stomach churning with every word. "I'm not blind." Her face flushed and she grabbed her purse, slinging it over her shoulder with a huff. "You're being ridiculous. I'm leaving." "Damn right you are," I said, stepping aside to let her pass, my voice icy. "And don't come back. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are, Kimberly." She hesitated, her eyes darting to Robert as if he'd save her, but he just stood there, silent, his jaw tight. With a final toss of her hair, she stormed out, the door banging shut behind her. The silence that followed was heavy, oppressive, like the room itself was holding its breath. Robert rubbed his face with both hands, exhaling sharply. Lisa, I don't know what you think you saw, but you've got it all wrong. All wrong? I said, my voice rising again, raw with hurt. You sent me in April to Florida, Robert. You made this big show of being the perfect husband. First-class tickets, sweet words about how much I deserve it. And the second I'm gone, she's here? How long have you been planning this? I didn't plan anything, he shouted, his composure cracking as he threw his hands up. I have the Harrison meeting next week. It's a huge deal, you know that. I couldn't go with you, and Kimberly she showed up, okay? I didn't invite her. I shook my head, my chest aching as I replayed the morning in my mind. He'd been so convincing, standing in our sunny kitchen, his dark hair still messy from sleep, handing me those tickets with a smile that made my heart flutter. Honey, you've been working so hard, he'd said, his hand warm on mine. Take April, go see your parents. I'll hold down the fort here. I'd hugged him, tears of gratitude in my eyes, thinking how lucky I was. Now that memory felt like a cruel joke, a mask he'd worn to hide whatever this was. I talked to Jenny today, I said, watching his reaction closely. She told me about Paul, her sister's ex, how he'd send her sister on these trips to get her out of the way so he could cheat. Sound familiar? Robert's eyes darkened and he stepped closer, his voice dropping. Jenny's full of crap, Lisa. She's got trust issues a mile wide because of Paul. Don't let her poison you against me. Poison me? I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. I'm not the one pouring wine for the neighborhood flirt in my own house, Robert. I'm not the one lying here. My phone buzzed in my hand, and I glanced down. A text from Jenny. Everything okay? You at the airport yet? I ignored it, my focus locked on Robert. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang, sharp and jarring, cutting through the tension like a blade. Robert frowned, glancing toward the door. Who's that? I don't know, I said, my stomach twisting as I moved to answer it. I swung the door open, and there stood Paul himself, Jenny's ex-brother-in-law, all slick charm and crooked grins. His leather jacket was scuffed, his hair greased back, and his hazel eyes gleamed with something unsettling. Lisa, hey, he said, leaning against the frame like he owned the place. Jenny said you were headed to Florida, but I figured I'd swing by. Looks like I caught the good part. Paul? I said, my voice tight with confusion and dread. What are you doing here? Jenny's worried about you, he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invite, his boots thudding on the floor. And damn, I see why now. Robert, buddy, you're playing my old game, huh? Send the wife packing, bring in the side piece. Get out, Robert growled, his fists clenching as he moved toward Paul. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I know plenty, Paul said, smirking as he crossed his arms. I wrote the playbook, man. Lisa, you're smart. Don't let him gaslight you. This is textbook. Shut up, Paul, I said, my head spinning as I tried to process his words. Robert, tell me he's wrong. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. Robert's face was a storm of emotions, anger, panic, desperation. He's wrong, Lisa. I swear I'm not that guy. Kimberly was a mistake, but it's not what you think. A mistake? I whispered, my throat closing up as tears burned my eyes. I've given you everything, Robert. My savings to start your company, my time, my trust. I gave you April, and this is what I get? My voice broke, and I hated how weak it sounded, how vulnerable I felt standing there. The doorbell rang again, and I flinched, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Now what? I muttered, stomping back to the door. This time it was Mrs. Henderson, our nosy next-door neighbor with her gray curls and a perpetual frown. She held a plate of cookies, but her eyes were wide, darting past me into the house. Lisa, dear, I saw Kimberly storm out, she said, her voice dripping with concern that didn't feel genuine. Is everything all right? I heard shouting. Everything's fine, Mrs. Henderson, I said through gritted teeth, forcing a smile. Just a little misunderstanding. Oh, well, I brought these over, she said, shoving the plate into my hands. But if you need to talk, you know where I am. Robert's been working so hard lately. Maybe he's stressed. Thanks, I said, practically shoving her back out the door before she could dig deeper. I slammed it shut, turning back to Robert and Paul, the cookies clattering onto the counter. Great, now the whole street's going to know. Let 'em talk, Paul said, lounging against the wall like he was enjoying the show. Truth's coming out one way or another. Get out, Paul, I said, my voice shaking with exhaustion and fury. I don't need your commentary. He shrugged, tipping an imaginary hat. Suit yourself. But call me when you need a witness for the divorce, huh? With a chuckle, he sauntered out, leaving me alone with Robert again. Lisa, Robert started, his voice softer now, almost broken. I know how this looks, but I love you. I'd never throw us away. Not for Kimberly, not for anyone. Love me? I said, my laugh bitter and sharp. You don't lie to someone you love, Robert. You don't sneak around behind their back. I held up my phone, the video still running, a ticking time bomb in my hand. This is going to ruin you. My lawyer's going to have a field day. Lisa, no, he said, his face paling as he reached for me. We can work this out, please. Work it out? I said, stepping back, my heart splintering with every word. You always said if we don't have trust, we don't have anything. Well, Robert, we don't have anything anymore. I grabbed April's passport from the table, my hands trembling, and headed for the door, my mind a chaotic swirl of pain and resolve. I stormed out of the house, April's passport clutched in my hand, the weight of Robert's betrayal pressing down on me like a physical thing. My sneakers slapped against the pavement as I headed for my car, the cool evening air doing little to calm the fire raging inside me. Robert's voice echoed behind me, desperate and pleading, Lisa, wait, we can fix this. But I didn't turn back. I couldn't. Every step felt like shedding a piece of the life I'd built with him, a life I'd poured my soul into, only to find it crumbling under his lies. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, probably Jenny checking in, but I ignored it. I needed to get to the airport, to get April and me out of this mess, away from him. Sliding into the driver's seat, I slammed the door shut, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My breath came in ragged bursts, and for a moment I just sat there, staring at the dashboard, trying to make sense of the chaos in my head. Robert's face flashed before me, his warm smile that morning, the way he'd kissed my forehead as he handed me those tickets, the man I'd trusted with everything. And then Kimberly, her smug little laugh, her hand on his arm. The image twisted my stomach and a sob clawed its way up my throat, but I swallowed it down. No tears, not now. I had to be strong for April. I started the engine, the hum steadying me as I pulled out of the driveway. The neighborhood blurred past. Mrs. Henderson's house with her curtains twitching, the perfectly manicured lawns, the life I'd thought was mine. My phone buzzed again, insistent, and this time I glanced at it. A text from Jenny. Paul just called me, said he saw Kimberly at your place. What's going on? My jaw tightened, and I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. Of course, Paul couldn't keep his mouth shut. He'd probably already told half the town just to stir the pot. The drive to the airport was a haze, my mind replaying every moment of that confrontation. Robert's excuses, Kimberly's fake innocence, Paul's sleazy grin, they all swirled together, a toxic mix that fueled my anger. But beneath it, there was something else, a deep, aching hurt that cut sharper than I'd expected. 7 years, a daughter, a home, all built on what? A lie? I thought of April, her little face lighting up when Robert scooped her up after work, and my chest tightened. How was I going to explain this to her? How was I going to pick up the pieces? By the time I reached the airport, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I grabbed my bag and April's passport, my movements mechanical as I headed inside. The bustle of the terminal, people rushing with suitcases, announcements crackling overhead, felt distant, like I was moving through a dream. I found April with my cousin Tina, who'd offered to watch her while I ran home. Tina's eyes widened when she saw me, her freckled face creasing with concern. Lisa, you okay? She asked, shifting April's backpack onto her shoulder. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, I muttered, forcing a smile as April ran to me, her tiny arms wrapping around my legs. Thanks for watching her, Tina. We're good to go now. You sure? Tina pressed, her voice soft but insistent. You don't look good. What happened? I'll tell you later, I said, crouching to hug April, her warmth grounding me. Right now, I just need to get us on that plane. Tina nodded, though her eyes lingered on me, worried. Call me if you need anything, okay? Anything. I will, I promised, standing and taking April's hand. Come on, sweetie, let's go see Grandma and Grandpa. April beamed, oblivious to the storm inside me, and I led her toward the gate, my heart heavy but determined. As we boarded, I pulled out my phone one last time, the video still saved in my camera roll. My thumb hovered over the Instagram app, my 50,000 followers waiting for the next perfect snapshot of my perfect life. But that life was gone. Instead, I opened the app, uploaded the video, Robert stammering, Kimberly's exit, all of it, and typed a caption. The perfect family? Just another lie. Time for the truth. I hit post, my heart racing as the upload bar filled, and then shoved the phone into my bag. Let the world see. Let him deal with the fallout. The plane took off, April dozing against my shoulder, and I stared out the window at the lights of California shrinking below. My parents' house in Florida would be a refuge, a place to breathe, to figure out what came next. But Robert? I imagined him back home, alone in that big house, his phone blowing up as the video spread. His precious Harrison deal would tank. Nobody wants a scandal-ridden CEO, and his reputation, his company, everything he'd built with my money, my trust, would crumble. It wasn't enough to erase the pain, but it was a start. Hours later, we landed in Miami, the humid air hitting me as we stepped off the plane. My phone buzzed again. Jenny, probably freaking out over the post, but I didn't check it yet. Instead, I carried April to the rental car, her sleepy weight a comfort in my arms. As I buckled her in, a new text popped up, this time from an unknown number. Lisa, it's Kimberly. We need to talk. It's not what you think. Meet me tomorrow? I stared at it, my stomach lurching. Not what I think. What game was she playing now? I didn't reply. Not yet. I drove to my parents' house, the road ahead stretching into the dark, uncertain but mine to navigate. Robert's world was falling apart, and I'd made sure of it, but Kimberly's message gnawed at me. Was there more to this? Had I missed something bigger? I didn't know, and for the first time in hours, a flicker of doubt crept in. Not about Robert, but about what came next. Pulling into the driveway, I looked at April in the rearview mirror, her peaceful face a reminder of why I was doing this. I'd lost my marriage, my trust, but I hadn't lost her. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start over. The lesson hit me hard. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, you can't glue it back together. But you can build something new from the pieces. Robert would suffer, his lies exposed, his life unraveling, while I'd find my footing again, one step at a time. As I carried April inside, my phone buzzed once more, comments flooding in, my followers reacting to the video. I'd check them later, but for now I had a question for you, the ones watching this unfold. What would you do if you were me? Confront Kimberly and dig deeper, or walk away and let the ruins burn? Let me know. I'm still figuring this out, and I could use your thoughts.